Welcome friends to another r/malicious compliance video. So I was checking my statistics and it turns out that only one of you aren't subscribed. So if you don't want to be that one person, make sure to hit the like and subscribe buttons down below. And our first story of the day is by Chibi Tank. Follow protocol? Yes sir. So this happened last week. I work for a soft drink distribution warehouse. We pick products off of shelves, fill pallets with product, load the pallets on the trucks, etc. We need to hit a quota of at least 150 cases of product an hour. If we don't have the product on the shelves, we will empty slot it and move on to the next case. I come in early every day to check our stock area to see if we're out of any product we can't put on skids and write them down and give a copy to the shift employees to save time. Now 2 weeks ago, we hit a warehouse record of 42,000 cases in a 12-hour shift and had a meeting to find out how we did it. I spoke up and explained what I'd been doing to save time and effort. Our manager then berated me for not following proper protocol of having to call over a forklift and having them double check to make sure we're actually out of product before moving to the next. It takes more time than needed and grinds our numbers to a halt. I ended up getting a write-up. Great. Feeling discouraged and a bit petty, I went home angry and decided so be it. This past Monday, I came into work early like I usually do and checked out the inventory. Business as usual. I took note of all the MT product and wrote it down. I went into the office and made enough photocopies to give to my coworkers and reminded them to follow protocol to the letter. Now on to the malicious compliance. On Mondays, the manager is the only licensed forklift driver on shift. We started the shift with a pre-shift meeting and stretch and started the day. Not even 1 minute in and I'm calling for the forklift. The manager shows up and goes to check the stock. 10 minutes later, he comes back and tells me to empty slot, so I do. As the manager leaves, I call for the forklift again, another 10 minutes, another empty slot, and I do this every single time for the next 12 hours. The icing on the cake is I'm not the only one doing this. Every employee's doing the same. As builders, we're not allowed to move on to the next case until we get confirmation. So while one employee's waiting, it's causing other employees to wait even longer. We got told to empty slot the items we knew were gone, but every time we told the manager, we have to follow protocol like you told us. We managed to get an outstanding 1,200 cases in the 12-hour shift, a new record for the least productive day. Needless to say, Tuesday, I got my write-up stricken from the record, and I was given the go-ahead to go back to what we were doing before. So in your guys' opinions, considering the manager was focused on the protocol, and once realizing that it didn't work, reverted the write-up and let OP go back to what they were doing, do you think the manager should be really at fault for any of it? They just wanted their employees to follow protocol, and once realizing the problems with it, reverted it. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Our next story is by Bleblaw17. Want me to rush to work? Okay, pay double and wait longer. I own a body and paint shop in a city with lower cost of living than the surrounding cities, and because of this, my prices are more reasonable than some of the other shops in the surrounding areas. Also, I'm very picky when it comes to my work and have the mindset that regardless of what my customers are paying, within reason, I'll take extra steps to make sure the end result is up to my standards, and I always include warranty on my work. As a result of this, most of my customers are referred to me from the other more expensive cities around because they want quality work at a lower price. My prices aren't cheap, but they're lower in comparison to the more high-end shops in more expensive areas for the same quality work. This has usually been a win-win for me and my customers. Now for the malicious compliance. I had a guy call me and ask the usual questions, and he agreed to bring his vehicle down to my shop so I could inspect it and give him a quote. The following day, he brings his vehicle down to my shop, and I immediately realized that the vehicle's been previously painted. Experienced painters can usually tell. In this case, it was obviously not done correctly, as the paint was already beginning to fail. He wanted to do a full restoration of the vehicle to factory condition, and I explained to him that due to the fact that the vehicle had been repainted before, there could be a chance that the time frame or price could change depending on what's underneath the paint once I start sanding. For example, improper body work or prep work done by the previous painter. I also tell him that if I do find any issues, that I'll run them by him before continuing to make sure it still fits within his budget. We agree to the terms and a rough time frame of 3 to 4 weeks, so long as there are no surprises. He leaves a deposit, and I begin work on his truck. 3 days later, I have the bed removed as well as the front end, doors, and interior, leaving the truck as basically a skeleton, and I start sanding the parts. After I start sanding and I get through the paint layers, I see that there is some previous body filler on the panels, which is normal on older cars, especially when they've been repainted, and most of the time it's no biggie when the previous repairs are done properly, meaning that the body should never exceed 1/8 inch thick. But I quickly find out that the cab of the truck had a pretty severe impact before, which the previous body shop had not pulled out before doing body work, and the panel had a full 1.5 inch of body filler. I stopped what I was doing and called up the owner to let him know. After discussing it and sending him a video of the issues, we agreed to adding an extra 2 weeks to the time frame and additional repair costs, and I began the proper repairs. About 2 weeks into the original drop-off date, I get a call from the owner of the truck, and he tells me that he needs the truck to be done by the following week because he has a buyer for it, and he doesn't want to wait any longer. At this point, I have the truck completely torn apart and have only finished the body work on the cab and front end and just started the repairs on the bed and doors, and that we agreed to an additional 2 weeks on top of the original time frame, which still hadn't come yet for a total of 5 to 6 weeks. I explained to him that it wouldn't be possible for me to get all the remaining work done within a week without me having to hire more people, which would add to the cost of the job. He followed up by saying that he would not pay a penny more, and that if his truck wasn't done by that date, that he would be at my shop with a tow truck and law enforcement to take it, and he wouldn't pay the remaining balance. Now, I knew that he wouldn't be able to get away without paying the balance, and that law enforcement would back that up, as in my state, I'm allowed to place a lien on any vehicle that has a balance on labor already performed and agreed to by the customer, which he had. Now for the malicious compliance. At this point, the customers had begun making threats and insults, so I tell them I'll get the truck done on some conditions. The warranty would be void, I would not be responsible for any previous work done to the truck that may fail, and the outstanding balance would be paid in full on the day of pickup, and that the job would be considered complete. He agreed to the terms and told me to do what I had to, but make sure it was done. I simply sanded the paint a bit and proceeded to paint the truck, and sure enough, the paint showed issues immediately, but the truck was finished on time. The owner comes to pick up his truck and is livid at the results and proceeded to call the police because he didn't want to pay. The police arrive and I show them the paperwork he signed as well as all the text messages backing my explanation. The cops then tell him that unless he pays the balance, he would be forced to leave the truck and pay storage fees until it was. He reluctantly paid the balance and proceeded to take the truck to another shop, which the truck sat at for an additional 4 months, and he had to pay almost double the price I was charging to have them redo some of the work. The parts I took my time on before the whole issue arose were left alone. Yeah, so I think the simple lesson here is don't screw the guy that's doing labor on your vehicle, and also that if you agreed to something and probably signed a contract, you can't just start making demands trying to change the terms you already agreed to something. Our next story is by Take It Easy. All items on the conveyor belt? I'd love to. Happened today at a club/membership warehouse retailer. The newly appointed floor manager, of course we'll call her Karen, in between berating her staff and hissing at customers who mess up the way their goods are displayed and merchandised, she accosted my son for unfolding a Lakers hoodie, then not folding it back up perfectly, was asking rather loudly, "All items must be placed on top of the conveyor belt for easy, quick, and efficient checkout." My son and I look at each other. We then carefully place the boxed 60-inch OLED 4K HD TV on top of the conveyor belt. We had to place the box in Tate mode orientation in order for it to fit, as the belt wasn't long enough. We could tell from the smirk on her face that the checkout gal knew we were being maliciously compliant, as she pretended to not have noticed and continued helping the customer ahead of us. Belt jerks forward with its usual sudden start and stop motion. Boxed TV makes a loud thud as it makes an impact with the polished concrete floor. The floor manager and store manager run over asking what happened. My maliciously compliant son speaks before I could and says, "Karen here instructed everyone to place all items on top of the conveyor belt for easy, quick, and efficient checkout. I just didn't want her to yell at me like she did earlier at the sports apparel section." Karen is beet red with her forehead veins popping out and throbbing at this point. The lovely checkout gal interjects to the store manager, Sorry, I didn't notice the TV on the conveyor belt as I was helping the elderly customer ahead arrange her shopping cart. We only have ourselves to blame as we've been telling everyone all morning that all items must be on the belt. Son and I carry on with the checkout process after getting a replacement TV. On our way out, the receipt checker says, "Not all heroes wear capes. We needed someone to do something like this," as he winked at us. You gotta love those moments when somebody gets all nasty or demanding and they say, "You must do everything this way." And then when there's something that clearly can't be done that way, but you do it anyways and it messes up, those people are usually the first to go, "Well, I didn't mean everything. Clearly you should have known you can't do it for that." Well then why would you demand you do everything a certain way? Customer's always right. This next story is by Supergy. Find a new job? Okay. I was working for a small local store chain, 17 stores across the state. Paid $1 over minimum wage. Apparently had decent benefits if you were full-time. They made sure no one was, and wasn't too terrible. Then last week, the entire staff at a different store quit at once. Didn't think much of it until our boss's boss came in and said he needed people to go cover that store. It was 42 miles away. Do we get any sort of raise or gas money? No, we don't pay you to drive to work. Will we work 8-hour shifts? No, you're all part-time employees. Of course, everyone started voicing their disapproval. Half of us don't drive at all, and most share a car with a family member. We're making maybe 20 grand a year, and now they want us to drive over 1 hour each way in traffic to work a 3 to 5 hour shift? The director got upset and said, "I'll be back tomorrow and I expect 4 volunteers. If you don't want to be a team player, I suggest you find another job." So I did just what he suggested. I went online and found companies offering entry-level positions for several dollars an hour more, and some even had a signing bonus. I had 2 interviews set up the same day and ended up taking a warehouse job that paid $3 more and had a $1,000 bonus after 120 days. 2 other coworkers got a job there as well, and we're encouraging everyone at our store to apply. Apparently the job market's gone crazy lately, but none of us were really looking, so we didn't realize we were underpaid. Depending where in the country you're living, 20 grand a year isn't even a livable wage. So expecting anybody to commute 2 hours a day for something that pays 20 grand a year? No. No. You're insane to expect that of anybody. And our final story of the day is by Tornado Tomatoes. Have you brought enough for the rest of the class? This is a pretty mild one in comparison to a lot of the stuff on here, but it's good fun. My high school had a pretty strict no chewing gum rule. Being caught with gum on multiple occasions could lead to detention, stuff like that. One day in class, a kid gets caught with gum. The teacher asks, "Have you brought enough for everyone to share?" "No." "Then you'll have to spit it out." You can probably see where this is going. A few days later, the same kid got caught chewing gum again. The teacher wheeled her out of line again. "Have you brought enough for everyone?" "Actually, yes, I have." He pulls out 5 packs of gum, more than enough for everyone in the class. To the teacher's credit, she totally agreed she'd been outplayed and let everyone who wanted some gum chew it for the duration of the class. Another teacher walked in and expressed shock that we were all chewing gum. Our teacher explained the situation and said it was her fault and that none of us would be getting in trouble. She handled it well, fair play to her. She never used that line again though. All it takes is that one person to be smart enough to use your line against you. I guess the bottom line is, if you're going to kind of punish anybody for anything, don't leave a very obvious maliciously compliant exposing loophole in the phrase you're using. You kind of open yourself up for a little bit of exposure there when your punishment line begins with really like a question, whether it's morals or giving them the option to do any kind of action to prevent really the punishment you're trying to give them. Bottom line here, that kid was playing 4D chess against this teacher. And I don't know about you guys, but if I was in that class and I got free gum, they'd also be a hero. But sadly, I'm out of gum to share with the class, and I'm also out of all the time we have for today. So of all these stories I've read today, which is your favorite and why? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you haven't yet, if you could like and subscribe, that would mean a lot to me. Whatever you do, whether it's liking, subscribing, turning notifications on, all of it helps grow this channel, and I appreciate the heck out of it. So until next time, I'll see you all tomorrow with some more stories.